What's up, gamers? Welcome to another Solana circuit. This is number 27 on May 27th, believe it or not. We actually perfectly planned that. When David and I first started doing these streams, we said we want to make sure that the 27th Solana circuit falls on the 27th day of a month. So, David, how does it feel to have accomplished this momentous goal of doing this?
I'll be honest, I don't remember setting that goal, but great. We're doing great.
That's because I completely made it up. But we are very, very excited to have a very special guest on today's Solana circuit. We have Austin Federa, co-founder of DoubleZero. Austin, how you doing today, brother?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, super happy to have you, man. But yeah, why don't we just get straight into it? Austin, why don't you give an intro on yourself? Tell us a little bit about what DoubleZero is, what you do at DoubleZero, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm Austin Federa. I'm one of the three co-founders, along with Mateo Ward and Andrew McConnell. And I spent the last 4.5 years before DoubleZero working in the Solana ecosystem for First Solana Labs and the foundation, running strategy there. And then before that was actually at Bison Trails, which was a blockchain infrastructure company that was acquired by Coinbase at the very end of 2020. And DoubleZero is really an attempt to rebuild the internet from first principles, to build a faster, more high-performant network than exists on the public internet, and that rivals the performance of private fiber networks that trading firms and Google and Amazon and OpenAI and all these big companies run for their private uses. But built with multiple independent contributors, powered by verifiability and a blockchain under the hood, and all the things that we would expect from something that we want decentralized and distributed finance to run over. So today there's about 10 terabits of capacity globally, about 170 different fiber links. We are in most major metropolitan areas for finance and trading around the world, which is about 35 at this point. So yeah, you can go to doublezero.xyz/dashboard and you can actually see the whole network live in real time.
Yeah, I have checked out the dashboard a couple times. It's kind of fun watching everything. I don't know. It's kind of fun just like actually being able to look at the internet in not just a web page, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the crazier one is if you go to data.malbeclabs.com, and we're going to get that migrated over soon. That is like the technical version. The doublezero.xyz one is like a marketing dashboard. The data.malbeclabs, it's all the stats on every single link, what it's doing, the ISIS data for it. There's a path latency calculator. This is all the stuff that like you just don't get from any ISP. You don't get from any other type of network. And so one of the things that people don't understand quite as much about DoubleZero is it's the most transparent network anyone's ever built as well. That you can't go on like the AWS dashboard and see the status of every piece of fiber that's here. And one of the things I want to draw attention to is like stuff goes wrong all the time. Like this is real physical infrastructure, not software infrastructure. At any given time, we have links that are out or integrated capacity or doing some packet loss or something. And the whole point of a high performance network is to be able to route around that seamlessly in a way that users don't even notice. So if you click on the performance on the left there, you can also see the performance increase over the public internet for every single link that we have in the network as well. And you'll see the vast majority beat by an average of about 20%. There's some links that actually don't beat the public internet, but those are still extremely valuable because they're extremely dependent. Whereas the public internet, it's like driving from Midtown Manhattan to like the airport. Like sometimes it's 45 minutes at 2 a.m. Sometimes it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. And so the dependency is one of the main characteristics of the network.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is really cool. It does set up the question that I think Nate's been dying to ask. If you want to go ahead and hit Austin with this one.
I mean, this is insane. I mean, you guys are literally building a new internet. I feel like this is something that so many people have tried over the years, and here's the real data. Like, there's real improvements over the physical, real internet that we're all used to. So, what inspired you to leave your job at the Solana Foundation? Because that's where you were previously to co-found DoubleZero. Did you just wake up in a cold sweat one day and say, like, I got to build a new internet? Or was this something you were kind of always passionate about?
Yeah, this is something that like I've been thinking about since probably late 2021, when we were sort of sitting around at Solana Labs and trying to figure out like how could we solve the internet problem. And it's kind of funny to be thinking back in 2021 that Solana was thinking about the internet problem, but the public internet is not that high performant. And so you see all of these sort of band-aids put on performance, and some of them are good, decent ideas, but regional clusters for voting, dropping the validator count down lower, all these different components. And they all sort of are band-aids on the fundamental problem, which is the internet was never built for high performance systems. The internet is like, you can think about it as like Ryanair. It's the most incredible low cost carrier anyone has ever built. For 20 to 40 bucks a month, I can get unlimited data wirelessly on a cell phone and reach any other person on planet Earth that has a connection to the internet. That is like, there's nothing in our lives that is that cheap. And that is like a massive achievement of capitalism and the public internet. But there's a reason that like none of traditional finance runs on the public internet. It all runs on dedicated physical infrastructure. And that's true of our largest tech companies, right? We think of like Facebook and these companies as public internet companies. They make all their money on the public internet. Well, kind of. Facebook's actually the largest operator of private fiber anywhere in the world. And they're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing that because they want your Instagram reels to load really quickly anywhere in the world because you keep scrolling and you see more ads. And so they got to a place where the growth and success financially of a consumer facing software product was determined by if they could replace the public internet as a bunch of the underlying architecture of their system. And so it's sort of this thing about like, if the public internet's too slow for Instagram reels, like what are we doing trying to rebuild the world's entire finance on top of it?
Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
But, that being said, this would have been impossible without my co-founders. I mean, I really want to stress just like, Andrew comes from 15 years of experience in running and building networks for high frequency trading firms and exchanges. Mateo, same thing, where he actually built and operated and ran carriers that provisioned circuits and connectivity for trading firms and other sort of latency sensitive applications. And so this is a weird world of it's like a bunch of it's still even done on paper. Like there's been times we've had to fax in stuff. You would think that like the internet runs on the internet, but the internet still in some places runs on paper, and it's very slow. And so the like I don't mean like technically slow, like the business processes are incredibly slow. And so having, two co-founders who have spent their entire career navigating this, it's the only reason we have the network actually built. The classic folly of crypto people trying to do stuff in the real world, or software people in general trying to do stuff in the real world, would definitely have applied otherwise.
yeah, I mean, it's a huge undertaking. Like, I mean, this is really cool. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about what this means for Solana, right? Because I know obviously like you guys are building this infrastructure. I'm sure there are probably plenty of things that can be used that can be used for beyond just Solana. But at least for right now, to my knowledge, it's primarily used to kind of connect Solana validators between these different hubs across the world, right? Is that accurate?
It is primarily used, but not exclusively. So we actually have a few trading firms that operate trade servers on DoubleZero, and they use the network to communicate between their systems. We have a few RPC providers that are starting to do the same thing as well. Those are Solana specific. But we also have Shelby coming, which is the Aptos storage network that's trying to compete with Cloudflare and AWS S3. And their whole backend data movement system is built on DoubleZero as well. And so we very much started with Solana because it's like the most ambitious network that has the most immediate need for this. But we've seen in the 2 years since we started building the project, the landscape has changed dramatically. And there's like the 1010 flash crash was like a real illustrative point for me because that thing like shouldn't have happened. And when I mean shouldn't have happened, like yeah, sure, crashes never should happen, but we saw entire percentage point diversions in pricing between like Binance and Coinbase and between Hyperliquid and DEXs on Solana. And the industry is just incredibly poorly arbitraged. It's very poorly interconnected from a data perspective, and this is a big area that we saw an ability to use the DoubleZero network to build tooling that'll improve the functioning of crypto pricing and price discovery, across the board.
Yeah. You mentioned that RPCs are starting to use DoubleZero, specifically Solana RPCs at the moment. Can you talk a little bit about basically like we've brought on a few people. We had Triton on I think last week, and we were talking about RPC 2.0.
Yeah,
Kind of the network as a whole is moving more towards a streaming instead of a polling model. Um, how how do I phrase this? I know there's starting to be like rewards for various like shred providers and different things. You guys have a bunch of different kind of products, and it's kind of hard to keep track of all of them. But
sure.
what is this starting to look like, sort of from a data availability perspective, and how does DoubleZero play into that sort
Yeah,
of
we
process as
actually
we're upgrading things?
we actually just launched another product yesterday. So yeah, we're there's a lot of stuff going on. So maybe it makes sense to start with like DoubleZero Edge and shreds. So there's a lot of need in this space for fast access to shreds, which are the smallest increments of blocks on Solana. And the reason this matters is if you can receive those shreds and decode them before other people, you get some alpha on where the market is likely headed. Now, shreds, they're not confirmed blocks. They can fail. They don't often fail, but they do. So it's not a guaranteed this is what's happening, but it's a pretty good sense of like what is likely to be in the next few blocks. And so for traders and market makers, folks who are doing high performance trading, that ability to see where the market is moving on chain matters more and more as price discovery comes on chain. If you go back a year, what almost everyone was doing is they were reading the price off Binance and then they were responding to that on Solana. That's starting to change. There are some assets where price discovery maybe has not fully moved onto Solana yet, but it's getting a lot closer on Solana, especially for like new projects that are launching. And so being able to know like, hey, what is the market doing on Solana informs your market making on centralized exchanges, it informs your market making on chain, all these types of things. And so there are great TRED services out there. Jito runs one, Helios runs one, lots of people run one. Um, and what they do is they basically source data from Turbine and they transmit it very quickly out to users. But they're not sourcing it from the source. They're getting it from sort of a second or third hop. And so what we've done with DoubleZero Edge is the validators are actually sending data directly into the DoubleZero network. So there's no like collection server that's like pulling all the data in and then sending it all out again. It's streaming directly from the leaders themselves. And we've got about 50% of Solana validators participating in that at the moment. And so that's kind of one of the big areas we've seen interest from folks is on that, and that's been a pretty successful product to date. We win about 98% of the time over benchmarked competitors in actually delivering that shred data. And validators get paid. This is the cool piece about this. It's a rev share model. So 50% of the revenue goes to the Fibre network for DoubleZero. 50% of the revenue goes to the folks in the Solana ecosystem responsible for this. So that includes the validator client teams who are building the software, and then the vast majority of that goes to the validator itself, which actually produced the shred data.
We love to see validators getting paid. We've David and I have had a ton of conversations with validators of all different sizes, especially indie ones, and it's a struggle for them right now. Smaller
Yes.
validators are really struggling to make money just operating on Solana, and most of them are not even break even. They're losing money on a daily basis. I guess like my next question is, what does DoubleZero change for these indie validators as far as actually trying to break even with their validator? Like, does it make a pretty significant difference running DoubleZero?
So today it is not like a massive payout, and the reason for that is it's we don't have inflation on the protocol. We don't have sort of gamified incentives. It is based on money paid in. So right now there's about $1.6 million a year paid in for buying shreds, and so validators get about a $600,000 share of that. which, is real money, but it's not, it's not replacing GDOMEV of 2025 or something like that. But it is covering server bills, right? It is it's enough from that perspective. And this is really downhill of Solana trading. So no one will pay for data that they don't find economically valuable. And so as Solana becomes a better and better place for trading, the interest in that goes up. And that's kind of the main flywheel here is as Solana gets more, it gets a better place to trade, more people are going to be buying this high performance data. Therefore, the value of that data sold goes up, more people subscribe, all that type of stuff.
Cool.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, David.
I know you guys also do on the other side of things that you have the DoubleZero delegation program. That also, that I know that is potentially a benefit for smaller validators looking to kind of hit that break even, stake amount, or even just to be able to make a little bit more money, because a lot of validator earnings are tied to how much stake weight they're able to attract.
Yes.
Can you walk us through a little bit about what you guys have been seeing with the DZDP, and yeah, what the kind of goals are for that?
Yeah, definitely. So the DCDP is not primarily, I would say, a validator. Like, it's not designed to create more validators, right, or something along those lines. What it is designed to do is help decentralize the cluster a bit by making it economically viable for more people to move out of the Central European corridor. Um, and that's possible because there's fast double-zero fiber at these locations and this sort of thing. So that's a bit of like what that structure is. And so it basically just rewards validators for geographic decentralization and for connecting in to DoubleZero and publishing shreds into Multicast there. So yeah, I wouldn't describe it as like a support program for validators necessarily. It is additional income and revenue, but you do need like an existing, um, uh, you know, group of people involved in it.
Business model has to make sense, of course.
Yeah.
So pivoting a little bit here, as far as I understand DoubleZero, you guys operate on private fiber. So like
Yes.
fiber being used by high frequency trading firms, and you're using that unused bandwidth to run the DoubleZero network on. Um, so how did the conversations go with these firms that are running this private fiber? Like, did you guys just shoot them an email and be like, "Hey, we know you have all this unused bandwidth. We're willing to pay you to use this extra bandwidth," or were they just kind of willing to give it away for free? Like, how did those conversations go initially for DoubleZero to be able to operate on this fiber?
Yeah, this is really one of those things where we have folks who are normally not working together on stuff working together, which is one of the really cool pieces. We have, competitive trading firms who normally don't share anything, sharing, fiber into the DoubleZero network, because if you think about like the problem in traditional finance, there's not actually that many cities that matter for trading. So it's very possible for a Jump or a DRW or, a Galaxy of the world to go out and connect all those cities via fiber. It's, like $30 million a year maybe to do something like that. And if you're a trading firm, like, yeah, that's reasonable. The minute you look at something like Solana, which is run in over 300 different data centers around the world, it's not economically viable for them to go out and build that network just to trade stuff on Solana. And so instead, they can all uh, work with one another and share fiber using the DoubleZero network. And so suddenly, like, you get to use your competitor's infrastructure and they get to use your infrastructure. And that sort of idea of win-win and co-opetition is really at the core of the DoubleZero network. And it is actually one other piece that I've really seen as like a telecom thing that crypto hasn't figured out. Crypto hasn't really figured out how to like cooperate with some things and compete on others. And this is like how real business works, right? Apple and Samsung compete on selling phones, but Samsung is a component supplier to Apple for all sorts of things. And that sort of ability to separate different layers of the business and recognize, hey, we can both make money here and we both compete here, is something that crypto is just pretty immature at the moment. But our hope is that that really changes over time.
I think I literally mentioned this on stream last week. I used to work in Bitcoin DeFi, like on Stacks, the Bitcoin L2, and I just remember it being such a very tiny little niche sector of DeFi, which is already this niche sector, and there were all these different protocols like competing with each other like violently. And it's like if we all work together, we could grow the pie that we have. So that it just didn't make sense to me. I completely agree with you. It's such an immature industry as far as competition goes.
Yes.
Um, but I'm totally gonna derail the conversation here. The question that I did wanna ask you that David reminded me of was, why do sharks have such an appetite for undersea fiber optic cables? What is the connection there?
Yeah, so this is, as far as I understand it, this was a problem in the early fiber cables when they were using AC power to run the sort of boosters that are in line on the networks. And sharks, of course, they have all these electronic sensors, not electronic sensors, but sensors that detect electricity and electromagnetic waves along their bodies. And so the best explanation I've heard is that the AC current produced, magnetic waves that they thought might be prey, and therefore they bit it. Since then, fiber lines or undersea cables are almost entirely DC powered, and it seems like the issue has largely gone away. Sharks also kind of have this problem of like the deep sea ones aren't particularly smart, and sometimes they bump into something and they just bite. Um, but yeah, sharks are one of those very funny things where you like it's never a more physical network than when you have to worry about sharks.
I don't know, that meme you guys post all the time is just so funny to me. Just the
Oh,
shark
it's so
just
good.
chomping on a fiber optic cable, it's absolute gold.
Yes, it's really quite good. Somewhere I was talking with someone that said they actually had a piece of fiber pulled up from the ocean just for repair that like had a shark tooth stuck in it. That seems a little too good to be true. But I like the idea of that story.
I mean, that would be quite the souvenir, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like some DVC diver is like, hey.
Yeah, because you got to remember the fiber. I mean, it comes up through the beaches, right? So it gets into, if you've ever been like on a boat, especially around like Miami or something, and you see all these like squiggly lines on your chart. Some of those are undersea power cables. A lot of those are undersea fiber. And because Miami is where pretty much I think it's 85% of all of the internet for South America flows through Miami.
Wow,
I
okay.
did not know that.
Yeah, it's the internet is a lot. This is like another thing. The internet's a lot more centralized than people realize. Um, there's not actually that many peering points out there. And the fun thing is, if you are talking between Argentina and Chile, your data is almost certainly clearing through Miami as well.
Gotcha. Do you see that as a problem or something that needs to get corrected at some point, or is that something that maybe things like Starlink, or are there solutions kind of on the way, or is it even really something we
So,
need to be concerned about?
so I think one of the outputs of globalization is just intense interdependency and economies of scale. And so is it a problem that all so the reason that the it's called the Nap of America, the reason it is in Miami is because when they were building this stuff in the 80s, where else are you gonna put it? Like South America was not exactly and Latin America was not exactly stable in the 80s. It's still not exactly stable today. And so when you're building a building to run all of the internet for, you know, years and years through a building, Miami's a pretty good place to put it, right? Like, yeah, you've got hurricanes, you've got all those problems, but you have that almost everywhere in South America too. And so part of the question is like, does it matter that it's all clearing through this one building? And if what your use cases are financial from a latency perspective, it matters a ton. If what you're doing is like watching YouTube videos and like doing live streams and posting on Twitter, like the connectivity just has to be there. It doesn't really matter how it gets routed. I mean, you look at natural gas pipelines and oil pipelines, they all kind of do the same thing. There's these nexus points where things get traded. To the Starlink question, I think people have massively over indexed on space-based internet. And the reason I say that is it's still extremely low bandwidth and it's very high latency. And one fiber cable might have 8 pairs of fiber in it. Each of those pairs of fiber is running up to 800 gigabits per second per channel. The modern ones have 140 to 160 channels in it. So we're talking huge, crazy huge amounts of data per second that can be sent over these undersea fiber cables. You compare that to Starlink, and Starlink is capable of doing like, I think 4 or 5 orders of magnitude less data. And so it's nothing against Starlink. It's just radio communications are not as information dense as optical communications. And so for some situations, for some latency sensitive applications, for folks who are willing to pay the really high fee for it, Starlink may actually be a really powerful and useful asset. I mean, military applications obviously come to mind. One of the monetizations that Elon has talked about for Starlink over the long term, because it's not super profitable at the moment. Satellites are expensive, and there's not that many people who need rural broadband. Is servicing high frequency trading customers, because one of the limiting factors of fiber is its glass, and the speed of light through glass is not as fast as the speed of light through air or through vacuum. And so there are some situations where it's faster to go up to space and hop around the world and come back down than to go through a piece of glass, on the surface of the Earth. So I remain very interested and bullish in what SpaceX is doing in general. I don't think in any reasonable time horizon we're going to look at it as a replacement for fiber.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's just a question of throughput, right? So you might be able to beat it on speed, but on throughput, it's going to be really, really tough to kind of get that, like you said, over the air.
Yeah, and then there's all these other issues too, like you need wavelengths of light that go through clouds really well, and those tend to be longer wavelengths that are less information dense anyway. Like the military like perfected all this stuff in the 80s. They've had tight beam communications from submarines up to satellites that transmit huge amounts of data in very short amounts of time for years.
Dude, Blue Force is a ridiculous feat of engineering.
Yeah, like there's so much really interesting stuff that's gone on that we have no concept or access to. You know what I mean? Like there's so much of this stuff that like is out there that like, yeah, the technology from the 80s still like blows people's minds when they learn about like how inertial guidance for ICBMs work and all this stuff.
Because that's something that just everybody learns about, right?
I mean, honestly, like the best part of YouTube is you can go watch people explain this stuff for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is long story short. Like, there's a lot of communications technology stuff that the military has perfected that has not made it into civilian areas. But there's also situations where trading firms have come up with new ways of managing communications and new compression algorithms or new ways of just simply converting radio waves into electrical waves that are faster than our current systems, and they just haven't patented them because they don't want anyone else to get access to that technology. So, one of the things we are really trying to do with DoubleZero is to change the economics of this and to make speed and performance be something that is worth building infrastructure for outside of these extremely edge use cases like, a high frequency trading firm or something like that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys about hardware also, because I know you've talked a little bit about getting into about like FPGAs and like packet filtration and stuff like inline packet filtration, I assume is what you're kind of referring to.
Yes.
Is that something that you guys work closely with, or is that kind of just stuff that already exists in the pipelines that you guys are renting or
Yeah.
making these agreements about?
So we are deploying, or our contributors are deploying infrastructure into each of these environments. And so we're using a switch produced by Arista. And one of the cool things about the Arista switches is they have a fairly open and programmable platform. So we build a bunch of custom software, and the Malbec Labs team builds a bunch of custom software that runs on these devices and sort of allows them to connect to the blockchain, to network with the other devices, and that's what builds the whole system of the DoubleZero network. But we don't have any custom made hardware. Let me put it that way. It's all sort of off the shelf components that are very common in any high performance data center. And that was like a big thing for us, is we did not want to have to build any custom hardware for this thing.
Speaking of custom hardware, do you guys ever see a future where DoubleZero is laying its own fiber, or is the bandwidth of existing fiber enough to kind of go for the lifetime of DoubleZero, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, ownership is always going to be more economically viable than non-ownership, right? And so if the project is successful to the point where it's more economically viable for contributors to own fiber as opposed to lease fiber, they're going to start doing it, and we would love to support that, on the DoubleZero network. So that is kind of one of the main long-term things. Fiber is very expensive to put in. We're in the hundreds of millions of dollars cost for something like that. So it's not anything in the short term horizon, but might happen later on.
Maybe in the 2021 bull market, we could have justified expenses like that, but not in these market conditions.
Yeah, or should have raised a DAT, right?
That's right. That's 100% right. Or launch an NFT collection back in the day.
Yes.
Those were the days. Those are the
Yep.
days. I heard you mention earlier, you guys said you launched a new product. What was it yesterday?
Yeah, we launched a geolocation service, which was not built for anyone in crypto at all. It was the group outside of crypto that was looking for it. But if you go to the products on the website, there's a new one called geolocation verification. And one of the cool things this does, this basically just uses the DoubleZero network to coordinate and triangulate. Yeah, if you go to products on the top left there, the last one. This is basically just like triangulating where an IP address is based on probes all over the world. And the cool thing about this is it's not based on normal IP address geolocation services, which is like not very good in terms of what it is. But the nice piece about this is we generate a proof. So if you kind of step through some of those examples down there, you can see we do, there's pinging to determine where a device is. And then if there's a mismatch in it, we can start calculating where the actual location of it is. The nice piece about this is we generate you an on-chain proof. And that proof includes all of the math and all the measurements about how we received the location and the guess for where that IP address is physically located. That's really cool for regulators, right? You can now say, like, you can take this proof to a regulator and say, hey, look, like, we did the math. Here is the best of our ability. This user outsmarted us, but like we now have, just the same way KYC is, like, people fake KYC all the time, but suddenly the company has something they can bring to a regulator and say, look, they passed KYC. Now, yes, they used AI to pass it, or they're using someone else's account or whatever, but we made a good faith effort to prevent this thing from happening. And so as as we look at like perps dexes that are not allowed to operate in the United States, or we look at, geofencing requirements for airdrops, like a lot of the technology behind those is very thin at the moment. And we thought it would be interesting to provide the market with a stronger, much more compliant geolocation proofs.
Very cool. Okay, so this is useful for like threat actors, like the ones that are attacking the NPM repo like every single day nowadays.
I mean, you can basically see where they're coming from. Yes, if you ping them on this stuff, and it's like, it's not. You obviously can. You can make it so the location service can't pinpoint your location, but it's very, very hard to lie about where your location is. And that's kind of the main thing we set out to do here. And it can be initiated two ways, right? The user can sort of say, I would like to generate a proof of where I am located, and then submit that to, the chain. Or it can be the opposite way, where a company says, hey, I need to know where this IP address is, and then they get pinged by the network. So it works in both directions.
Gotcha. So yeah, this can be a very Web 2 product. So I know you guys are primarily focused on Solana. Where do you see DoubleZero in the next 5 years? Like, do you guys see the DoubleZero network becoming a serious competitor to the internet? I mean, I'm sure you guys don't want people watching like cat videos on the DoubleZero network, but where do you
Well,
see it?
if they're willing to pay more for low latency, high bandwidth 8K cat videos, who am I to tell them no?
Fair.
So really what I mean is like we built the network to be useful. And one of the things that I learned at Solana, which was one of the best lessons to learn, is you can't be too prescriptive about how the technology you're gonna make is actually used. And I think this was like Metaplex was such a great example of this. So I was one of the folks who was on that founding team of Metaplex, and everything we got about NFTs we got wrong, except for one thing, which is people wanted NFTs. The whole thesis was auctions are the killer feature because Solana is fast enough to run auctions, and every artist wants their own custom storefront to be able to, design their perfect experience. Turns out nobody wanted any of that. They wanted, all of the normal things that you would get. You wanted the centralized marketplaces, whatever, but they wanted the NFT token metadata contract. And so that was the thing that was built, and that was the thing that happened. And off to the races. There we go. The NFT boom happened on Solana. And if it hadn't been built in such an open, permissionless way, where everything was sort of modularized, they would have just been stuck in a centralized product mindset. And that's one of these main reasons why we build things in this very different fashion.
Gotcha.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, sorry, my main camera died, so we're charging that alternate back on in a minute, so you get this ugly one. But what sort of regulatory challenges are there when dealing with building like a fiber network? I know you were talking about how a lot of these deals and stuff still run on paper. I'm sure there's a lot of regulations and requirements and things that you also have to deal with. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that side of things?
Yeah, there's actually not as many as you would think. And the reason for that is we are regulated much more like an information service than a telco. So that's basically the same type of regulatory framework that like a Cloudflare runs under or something like that. And so it's great. It's great. What it basically means is we don't, net neutrality is dead in the United States anyway, but it does still exist in some other parts of the world. We are not regulated under anything like that because we are not carrying generic data as you're talking about. We're carrying specific data for specific domain applications. And there's all this stuff on the DoubleZero network that we haven't even talked about yet that you literally cannot run on the public internet, like multicast data. And so that really moves us into its own regulatory area. But the main thing is we have a no action letter from the SEC, which was a huge achievement to get prior to launch, which basically says that the use of the token is not does not make it a security. And so that's been really important from a regulatory perspective to helping companies feel more comfortable participating in the DoubleZero network.
Very cool. I'd love to talk about actual real world performance. So
Yeah.
what real world performance gains have validators and traders seen so far after they switched over to DoubleZero?
Yeah, so with shreds, we see anywhere from 15 to 30 milliseconds to in the tails, sometimes 250 millisecond faster shred delivery. That really matters for high performance traders. For validators, what we've basically seen is that they have lower skip slots on voting and those sorts of things. Now, as Solana moved to 200 millisecond blocks, which the Anza team keeps bull posting about, and I'm very excited, that's going to put a lot more strain and stress on validators to receive data in timely fashion. Candidly, I don't know exactly what is going to happen with that. But I'm very curious to see if we see more usage of like DoubleZero because of that or not.
Yeah, you mentioned multicast. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about what multicast is? I believe you hit something like 50% of stake weight, if I'm remembering correctly, just recently. That's kind of adopted it, or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah. So multicast is let me kind of like step back. Multicast is a agnostic technology. So it can work on all sorts of different types of data structures. But effectively, what it is it's hardware acceleration for packet replication. So you send the data once, and then that data is automatically replicated by the network layer and sent out to all the places it needs to get to. This is very different than how unicast traffic works, and the internet is entirely unicast traffic. So, like, for example, every single person watching this live stream today, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube or wherever, there's a server somewhere sending a copy of data to each of them. So if we have 300 watchers right now, if we go up to 3,000, we need 10 times as much bandwidth to be able to do that. This is part of why it took us decades to figure out how to stream the Super Bowl. It was just a huge data distribution problem. With multicast, it's different. The ASICs and the hardware inside of the network actually multiplies that data and moves it to where it needs to get to without the server having to do anything. So it's a huge performance increase. And this is the way traditional finance has moved market data around for a generation. The problem with multicast is it doesn't work on the public internet. So historically, it's only been available on these private high-performance networks to high-performance traders. And what DoubleZero has done is we made it accessible to anybody. The DoubleZero network is a multicast as a service network. We actually have some folks who are running custom multicast groups for their own internal trading operations or their own RPC operations on the DoubleZero network, because multicast as a service doesn't really exist. Like, you can't really go to someone and buy it. There's some versions of it, but they're very limited in what you can do. And so this is a major differentiator for us. And DoubleZero Edge, as you mentioned, is that Solana state distribution layer that's built on top of multicast.
Very cool.
So give me an idea here, Austin. How close is DoubleZero then to streaming the Super Bowl?
Streaming the Super Bowl is we still run into that data problem on the last mile. So if everyone wanted to watch the Super Bowl from a data center, we got you covered. But once you leave the DoubleZero network to get to everyone's house, you still have that bandwidth multiplication problem, because multicast, of course, doesn't work over the public internet. So we can get the data to like New York really efficiently, but we're not going to be able to get it like to someone's apartment. And this is where the public internet is far superior to DoubleZero. It's far superior in reach. And that's why we would never pitch DoubleZero as a wholesale replacement for the public internet. It's a supplemental tool. The public internet is generally really good for last mile delivery, and it's very bad for long haul data movement. And that's kind of the way that we sort of explain this to sophisticated actors as well.
So do you see, like, when DoubleZero becomes publicly available for
Sorry,
like,
just to because you actually asked something that was really, really good there, which is DoubleZero ready to stream the Super Bowl?
yeah.
The technical answer is yes. The Super Bowl is not much data. It's one video stream, right? Like, this is the beauty of multicast, is if everyone's actually connected into DoubleZero for this, it's what, 50 megs per second maximum for a stream of that. This is exactly what multicast is for, when you need 100,000 people to receive the exact same copy of one data. So, like, we can't get it to everybody's house, but we can get it to their, to their metropolitan region very quickly. I mean, it's basically the same amount of data as Solana State. The difficulty is that last mile out. But in a traditional system, right, you need like one server or a fleet of servers that have enough like compute processing and bandwidth to send all that out. With DoubleZero multicast, the bottleneck is now just on that last mile connectivity.
So how are you guys thinking about solving that last mile bottleneck then? Is that something you guys are kind of thinking about now, or have you done any work to kind of figure that out?
Yeah, it's not something that we are looking at the moment. I think over the long term, this would be basically like building out a CDN style product. And I think, our hope is basically that like there are folks who have tried to do CDNs on Solana historically. To date, none of them have succeeded, but I think it's an interesting concept. And so we'd be interested to see if anyone is building a CDN and wants to work with us on this. It might be something we build out in the future too, but for now, we're really focused on these different data products, because we think there's a huge amount of demand and use for traders there. But over time, look, DoubleZero is over time will vertically integrate more and more in areas that people are not already building out products and services to reach. But our preference and default is, wouldn't it be awesome if someone else builds it on DoubleZero?
I'll talk to Codex this afternoon and see if I can get a CDN spun up, a vibe coded CDN. I can't promise it'll work.
See, this is the place where it gets really interesting, because this is like one of the few pieces where AI has almost no applicability today. You can build the CDN software, but what you need are the physical fiber interconnects connected into like Verizon's local network and AT&T's local network, and it's kind of funny when it's sort of like, you can think about like, what are the applications in AI for like mail delivery? And you're like, well, I mean, it can do some sorting maybe a little bit better than humans, but until we have like robots that can walk up to your house and like put mail in your door, it's like mail carrier is one of the most AI proof industries probably for the next 10 years. Then after that, humanoid robotics, who knows where that all goes to, and drone delivery. But like, it's sort of like how self-driving cars, the problem, I mean, obviously some of the problems the software, but the problem is not that it's in theory hard to build a self-driving car. It's that it's extremely hard to build stuff that interacts with just how random like life is. And software systems run in these like beautiful little encapsulations on Docker and on in the cloud and stuff. And like, you never have to worry about the physical world. And like, we've got to worry about sharks. Like, it's a very, very different perspective.
Yeah, it's the hard part about making about a self-driving car isn't it's not the getting the car to do it by itself. It's what happens when the kid throws the ball on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, how are you thinking about I guess expanding into other products and other things? Obviously, you guys are like launching a ton of stuff. Like it seems like I'm seeing new news out of you guys every other week or something. Um, but as you're kind of getting stake weight and getting all these sort of agreements in place with Fibre between these data centers, what is kind of like the long-term vision for DoubleZero? Because like now that you're kind of established and in the sense of like you have a bunch of these agreements, what are kind of the next like steps of like, expansion, or what are you kind of hoping people start doing? Obviously, right now, kind of demand, like you were saying earlier, is sort of based on how much money can people make. Is there what's going on in the market? Is it worth me paying for this service?
Yeah.
Um, what are kind of areas of growth for you guys that you're looking to do right now? If you can
Yeah,
talk about any
I
of it.
think there's a lot of the concept of data feeds for all types of new finance is quite strong. I think, whether it's prediction markets or perps, dexes, and centralized exchange data feeds, this is an area where we're growing pretty rapidly. And so expanding out to coverage of other networks and other products is pretty high priority for us. I think, you know, uh, one of the things that, like, if the thesis for Solana is it's where everything should trade, well, we need data from every other exchange to be easily accessible on Solana then. And I think that's a really big component for us, is building out that interconnectivity and data pipelining between all of the places that both traditional assets and crypto assets trade today. Over time, whether that is hosting more infrastructure for blockchains and even non-blockchain systems, that's an era where we're looking into pretty heavily as well. And then we've kind of got these like experiment products like geolocation. Geolocation was like, hey, we can do this. We might as well build it and see if anybody wants to use it. And we've got some takers already. So, one of the cool things about when you've built this super high performant, globally distributed network, there's all sorts of use cases for this that just show up, and I'm excited to see what they are. This is like the beauty of having worked in Solana for so long, is like, I don't think anyone anticipated the meme coin craze. I don't think anyone anticipated the NFT boom. um no one expected the president of the United States would launch a token on the network. Like, things just come at you, and it's all about responding to them and building in this open, way that people can, smarter than you, can come in and build cool stuff.
Yeah, kind of creating the box of tools and then here, everybody else, go
Yes.
have fun. Like go do something with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I totally forgot I was gonna wear this hat during the stream. It's my DoubleZero hat. Shout out to
I love it.
Eden. Eden gave me this at Accelerate. Great hats, one of my favorites. And also got the blue shirt that says network. What
Network
is it?
department.
Network department. Yes, I saw those at Breakpoint. I wanted one so bad, but by the time I got to the stand, they were all gone.
These
So
shirts are also a little bit of an internal joke, because we have a bunch of engineers who come from like very rigid corporate environments, and so the word department like is not like a good word. And so the network department shirts, they're very funny, internally and externally. So I'm glad you like them, but they're also a little bit of an internal joke about corporate hierarchy.
yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, Austin. I mean, obviously, you used to work for the Solana Foundation, so there's a little bit of bias there. But why did you guys choose Solana over a network like Ethereum or Bitcoin? I mean, Bitcoin's obviously very, very slow, but why did you guys choose Solana as like the first chain to kind of deploy DoubleZero on?
Yeah, there's a few different reasons. The first was, the work that Firedancer had done, which had pushed Agave to get even faster as well. It felt like Solana was really ready for leaving the public internet behind. Now, as we've gone into it, there's a little bit less political willingness to do that as it gets closer to reality. So even though we've got 50% of Solana on the DoubleZero network today, like we're not raising limits as a protocol as fast as we could. So pace of development still continues to be, I think, maybe slower than a lot of us would hope, on Solana Core, but hopefully that's starting to change. But Solana is like it's where everything was trading, right? Especially if you go back to, in fall of 24 was when we announced, and so the beta went live in spring of 25. Everything was happening on Solana then. The landscape's a little different now. Hyperliquid has come up and starts to get pretty exciting. Prediction markets are getting more interesting. But if you have to sort of look at like where is the best chain to battle test yourself and where is the chain that is most likely to want to make use of this, it is still Solana, and that's why like I'm pretty bullish on the future of Solana and think it is still an incredible architecture and system to support. But it's like if we can nail Solana, everything else is downhill and easy.
Yeah. We're coming up on time, unfortunately, but I wanted to get your thoughts. I know there's been a lot of discussion lately. You and I, we're going into Alpenglow. You already mentioned we're looking at dropping block times down to 200 milliseconds, which again, that's going to put some stress on validators. It's going to put some stress on the network. There's some issues with that maybe, but specifically MCP and
Yeah.
Constellation, it's a lot of buzz about it earlier in the year until we kind of got the Constellation paper, right? I'm curious to get your thoughts on I guess the proposal as a whole, and also it is kind of a whole new network.
Yeah.
And given that this is going to be probably pretty reliant on stuff like DoubleZero, how like are you concerned about how this goes? Does this seem like a good direction for the network? Give us something spicy.
Yeah, I think MCP, it remains to be seen what the community support looks like for it. I think that we're in a world now where the single leader model is gonna be kind of hard to compete over the long term. I think Hyperliquid has shown that if you're willing to co-locate stuff, you can create a pretty awesome product experience. And Canton has carved out a bit of a niche for itself too in this regard. So I'm very sympathetic to the ideas that we need to rethink what Solana's value proposition is for the next 5 years, which may be different than what it's been for the previous 5 years. There's a lot of moving pieces in Constellation and Alpenglow, and there's a lot of complexity introduced into it. To me, it's a bet that institutionalization is going to continue. Like a lot of the features that the Constellation paper is solving for are like edge case selective censorship resistance stuff that really matter to traditional markets. They don't matter at all to crypto markets today. But they matter a lot to traditional markets. And so if we look at a world where we want, equities to trade on chain, where we want RWAs and these sorts of things really on chain, it seems like something that is a good move from that perspective. My consistent I don't know, worry, criticism, whatever of core is everything's just moving way too slow. That like there's like you want my spiciest take? It's been too long since we've had a network outage.
Wow.
I think
I like that actually. I
network
like
outages
that.
are bullish. It means people are like not always, not but like
Yeah.
we
Doesn't mean we
we
should send somebody with a hammer into the server room, but
right, like we should have a tolerance for once every 2 years there's going to be an outage because we're moving 40% faster than we would otherwise.
I think I could get on board with that. Although that does kind of, I guess, counter. Like there's a lot of like reliability issues if we're trying to bring institutions on chain. So I guess that would be kind of like the corollary.
Yeah, but like NYSE and Nasdaq have outages every once in a while. AWS has outages every once in a while. I
True.
think
True.
it's more about resiliency, right? And there may be ways that can be managed. It's not easy. I'm not saying hey, just like jack everything up to 11 and see what happens. But I, how would I put this? There are moments where moving too slowly is worse than moving too quickly. And I think Ethereum saw this. Like Ethereum made a lot of wrong decisions, has been completely left in the dust. Maybe it comes back, but I think if they had gotten their roadmap shipped 2 years earlier, they would have been able to figure out what's working and what's not working more quickly.
Move fast, break shit.
Yeah, 100%.
Love it. Well,
Ideally, move a little bit faster and don't break anything. But I'll take the trade-off of like, gun to my head, I would rather we were moving faster with a slightly higher chance of outage.
yeah, 100%. I mean, you said it yourself, like AWS, Cloudflare, they go
Yep.
out probably, it feels like on a monthly basis at this point. Like they have some sort of outages all the time. So like Solana going down for 10 minutes every 6 months. I mean, if it means we're shipping faster, then it is what it is. Like
Yep.
the Ethereum fudsters can FUD all they want, but I don't know, it feels like Solana's winning.
I say, but they didn't do 7.4 billion transactions in Q1. You know,
They didn't even
like
have the speed to do that, David.
it's true.
It's
That's what.
true. At the same time, right? Like we got to make sure that number keeps growing. It remains competitive. I mean, what Wall Street does an average, like U.S. equities, lit market, not future, just spot, does about 350,000 transactions per second on average.
Yeah.
So we're not even remotely there today.
There's a lot of room for more IBRL.
Yeah, and like what do we give ourselves? 10 years to get there, 5 years to get there? It doesn't feel like it's like, look, if we don't get there in 24 months, like we're gonna lose the market. Like a lot of people, and I really think this is one of the things that killed Ethereum is just people got rich and fat and slow, and or they got burned out and there wasn't enough support of a new generation coming in to build stuff. And I worry. I have seen the same thing start to creep into parts of Solana. I have also seen like the folks at Anza very aggressively try and kill that part of it. Foundation's doing some work as well to sort of like rotate out people who have maybe gotten a little too comfortable over the years. But you gotta keep that feeling of like we're about to get killed.
Yep. Shout out Trent and Alessandro. I love watching Alessandro just bitch about everything. It's always fun.
Yes.
We are at time.
Yeah.
Austin, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an awesome conversation. Really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to shill? Anything you want to? What should we do? What should we take away from this?
You should go to doublezero.xyz and sign up for all of our products and services. No, like but in all seriousness, like we do a bunch of custom network configuration stuff now too. We'd love to work with folks who are building interesting, cool stuff and want to use the DoubleZero network. So yeah, we'd love to chat.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. All right. Peace out, everyone.